This is time for free your mind and your soul. Yo, half the story has never been told. Ladies, you got to demand what you want, and what we want is respect, right? Yo, just sit up on the track, I know so you have to deal with it right. Freedom every time for the sisters. Check this. Watch this.
Here we go now. Listen, if I'm boom boom rule, I be the ruler like Slick Rick. Get with this quick witted Adidas wearing chick. Papa got a brand new bag. Mama got a brand new Jag. Or go tag. I ain't no old hag. I represent not only in the kitchen, in the bedroom, but also in the boardroom. So give me more room. Deny my opportunity. You in jeopardy. Yo, set me free. Don't hinder me. Let me be.
I'm fighting for freedom. I got the heat in case you need them. Straight soldier. Ain't nobody told ya. Hold up on them lies. I know your games and your plans.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Book Slam Extra. I'm your host Jules. I hope you have all had a lovely week. I have had a lovely week. I've been plant shopping today. The whatever the word is. The epitome of being an adult, I think, of going plant shopping, that and furniture shopping. Anyway, I am an author of dark fantasy with a bit of science fantasy, Dungeons and Dragons, sword and sorcery, that kind of thing, all embedded into one. I'm also on here every week. I also run a Discord server for writers with some amazing people who are joined on there, including beta readers. And yeah, that's a unique forum specifically for our guild, so to speak. And I also am a publisher as well. So anyway, welcome to our show. I hope everyone is okay. I'm going to bring on my lovely co-host just a second. We're having some glitches today because none of the icons are working. So that's why we have the duck in the corner and not our lovely logo that we normally have.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh, that's better.
Oh, hi. There we are.
Hi. How you doing?
Good. Plant shopping sounds exciting. Oh, and you said two words. That I have to bring up. I watched the new Dungeons and Dragons movie last night. I know we don't normally talk movies, but it was fucking fun. I loved it. It was so fun. It was so like adventure-y, and it was exactly what I hoped it would be. So you need to watch it. It was great. Yeah, it was fun. Anyways, hi. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. What?
No. I was just thinking, I love Dungeons and Dragons, so yeah.
This isn't how we normally start the show. We don't talk about movies. That's not what we're doing here. But hi, I'm Adam. I've written some horror books. Here they are. The Mantis Variant and the Mantis Equilibrium. They take place in a dark future dystopian world where people are hunting each other. Some people have superpowers. Some people want to kill them and steal their powers. It's pretty exciting. So yeah, I've also written a fantasy book that's heavier topics like human sexuality and gender and stuff like that Jules's company is releasing next year, 2024. So we're really excited about that. And starting in, that's called, it'll be out then. So yeah. And we have some lovely guests today. We have a fun topic today to discuss. And yeah, so here we are.
Yeah, well, I mulled over our topic for the best part of a week, actually, trying to work out what would be a meaty topic, because we quite like our meaty topics on here. And one of the things that we kind of come across, every so often, every month or so, is about characters. And I think it's such an intriguing and intrinsic part of every story, regardless of what the character is like. And one of the things that struck me is the amount of writers who are surprised completely by the amount of different personalities they can create from just their one personality. So I thought we could have a little bit more of a deep dive into that today and have a look at how other authors have kind of, managed that part, because that could be quite tricky when you're sort of like writing a character.
Keeping track of multiple characters, how they interact, all that stuff. Yeah, no, that's awesome.
And then you add into the other problem where you have to have that disclaimer, don't you, at the beginning of your book saying this isn't based on anyone who's living or dead.
Which is a lie every time anyone's ever read it in their entire existence, but it's got to be there.
Yeah, it's a bit like we only know faces. We can't make up a brand new face. We can only create faces in our mind of faces we've actually seen. And so, which I think is pretty cool. So it makes me wonder then, how many personalities can we actually create?
Well, I think we've got an advantage by having so much media. We have the exposure to way more faces through screens than we ever could have possibly imagined. And same thing with personalities. We get to see so many more personalities by watching media and seeing all this stuff. I feel like it's been really inspiring for creative people to have unlimited content, basically.
Yeah, and it is, isn't it? And what's really cool is you get to see, with the shorts as well, you get to see quite a wide range of different people in a very short space of time. And yeah, there might be a tiny little snippet, little habit that they do, or a snippet of their personality. You think, yeah, I'm just going to nab that and create that person in my books. So yeah, it's quite an interesting part. So I was thinking more about that because we've had some very interesting characters on here, haven't we? In terms, not the authors, but like
no, their characters that the guests brought to us. We've had some characters.
Both, but we've had like the characters in the stories have been quite fascinating. One with the sock, for example, stands out particularly, and that was very interesting. Makes you wonder really what goes through an author's mind when they're trying to yeah, I need a character for this story. What can I write about? I know.
About socks. Yeah, no, it was a brilliant short story. Yeah, where the main character was a sock. It was awesome. It was.
It was.
It was really enjoyable.
It was that. Yeah, and it was that good. It's something that I go back to every now and again, don't I? I was like, I wrote the sock one. That was good. So yeah, I thought we can have a little bit of a dive into that. We can have a chat about that. And the authors, if they're happy to do a little bit of reading, they can. And I know that
we're always so casual. We're talking about a deep dive and getting serious, but no, we're so casual. Yeah. So if anybody doesn't want to read, no pressure. We just love hearing people's creativity.
Absolutely. And I know you're working on something at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah,
so if you want to share a little bit of that, you can. And I'm in the process of working on something too. So if there's time, I might. I'm quite happy to know about it. So let's bring our lovely guest authors on. Hang on a second. Am I going to be able to? I can't do this all in one go. Hang on a second. I'm still learning how to do this.
The tech is giving us trouble. Hey, here we are. Yay. Welcome.
Hello. How you all doing?
Lysander, welcome. Do you want to go first? Just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your writing and maybe the name of your book and where people can get it if it's available.
Okay, sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm Lysander, and I write romance, queer romance. My recent series is dystopian, and the first book in that series is Lap Dance for Dystopia. And right now I'm working on a kind of science fiction fantasy romance.
Ooh, cool. Is it like aliens and interspecies characters, or is it humans on a voyage or something?
There are 2 humans that are minor characters, but they're the antagonists, and the humans are the aliens. So the non-human characters are the main focus of the story and their relationship.
That's awesome.
That's very cool.
And correct me if I'm wrong. You're with us in the Philippines tonight. Is that right?
I am.
Oh my gosh! Wow. Welcome. That's amazing.
It's 3 a.m.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for staying up. Whenever you want to jump off to go to bed, we totally understand. But thank you so much for being here. It's so exciting.
Thank you.
Diana, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your writing also?
Yeah, I am Diana Gunn. I write all kinds of things. Most notably, I write fantasy horror. This is my first book that's out right now. Moonshadow's Guardian, and it involves lots of things like blood magic and vampires and demons. It's lots of fun if you like a fairly high gore rating with your fantasy.
Some of us do. We talk about that often. Yep.
You do. Very, very cool. I like your book cover as well. It's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This was done by a very dear friend of mine, and I absolutely love it.
Very good.
Thank you so much.
I am going to have to apologise up front. Normally, if we have book covers, I've got an image of it on that Adam normally gets for me. I can actually put it up on the screen, but we're having a bit of a problem with the images at the moment. For some reason, the videos are working, but the images are not. So I'm not going to be able to do that today. But if you share your links via the private chat, I
You
will
can
very
put those
gladly
into the
share it. Yeah, I'll try and put a banner up on the screen and direct people to it. So I just an out of apology for not being able to do that today. Sorry, Adam.
No,
There's a
no,
free
that's great.
well.
Yeah.
Shall I free song?
And then you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your work as well?
Hi. Yeah, I mostly write fantasy-based stories, usually grounded in our world, like how can we figure this out? So very urban in that sense, or, contemporary. I write YA and adult, though lately I've been leaning a lot more adult in what I've been writing, but I do enjoy young adult stories, probably why my most recent one involves so many teenagers in the classroom and stuff like that, because it's from a teacher's perspective. So that's really fun. Yeah.
That is really cool. That is really cool. I think writing young adult is awesome, but it's quite restricted in terms of what you can include in it. Like you can't really include graphic sex scenes and things like that. They tend to not really like that.
That's definitely not made for.
No. Not saying they wouldn't read it if it had it in there. I'm not saying they wouldn't pick it up. But if you're trying to sell it at that, then they'll be a bit like.
Yeah, well, I thought when I wrote my second book that because I was taking all the sex and sexuality out of it, that was going to make it like for everybody, but it totally is still mature audiences because, like Diana, it's full of gore and terrible horribleness, and so yeah, we just do what we do.
Yeah. I'm going to add another person to the mix. Hang on.
Yay! Oh, Reese, hi!
Hey, Reese.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. My apologies for my tardiness. I have been having some fun trying to get myself together today.
Oh no! Well, you want to tell us a little bit about it, or at least introduce yourself?
Sure. Again, everybody, my name is Reese, aka Reese the Storyteller. I am the author of contemporary romance and erotica. I have one book that is published currently, which is Trapped, and part 2 is on the way this summer, which is out for pre-sales right now. That is title released, which is part 2 to Trapped. Other than that, y'all, I have been working on a project with a friend of mine. We're actually doing a summer program for the kids in New Orleans. So anybody out there listening, if you have kids aged 8 to 18, we've got a bunch of things going at the Hangout NOLA this summer. So sign your kid up. It's free. So get with us. I'll put the link in the chat so that way everybody will be able to see that.
That's awesome.
Nice.
That's so exciting.
Nice. So again, just to apologise, Nobody can put images out at the moment in terms of book covers, which is a bit annoying. We can only stream to one platform at the moment, which is YouTube. So yeah.
Normally we're on Twitter and Facebook and all sorts of links, I think too. So sorry about that.
We're going to do it in retrospect. So if you're watching this and you're on something other than YouTube, I apologise. You'll be seeing this later than the live version. That's really exciting. It's cool when you put on free stuff for kids. It's nice. It's cool because I think there's so many things that are so expensive for children nowadays, and especially with cost of living and all that kind of stuff that's going on.
Exactly. And I mean, they're going from one extreme to the next. My friend and I are going to be doing a creative writing class. There's an art class. There's a college preparatory class. They're going to be doing a cooking class over the summer. My friend Ray, who's actually a co-owner of the space, will be doing photography and filmmaking classes. So there's a little bit for every kid.
Wow.
That's really cool. That's really awesome. Cool. Yeah. Whereabouts is it happening? Just in case people missed it.
Sure. So it's going to be in New Orleans, y'all. So if y'all are near the New Orleans area and you feel like driving your kid over to drop them off to us for a couple of hours this summer, come on out. It's going to be in New Orleans East, the Hangout NOLA. I'll drop the link for the information in the chat because there's actually a link to all of the classes. It tells you the age ranges for each one, so that way you'll know which one your kids will be able to attend. And you can fill out the form, so we'll have a head count. First come, first serve, y'all. So as soon as y'all get them in there, we can go ahead and get slots for the kids ready to go.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That's so cool. That is really cool. All right, so I'm going to put this to the floor. So this is open discussion. So lovely guest authors, please don't feel you're going to have to wait for your name to be called. If you have an opinion or a thought, you can just join in. So today we're going to talk about characters. Now, we all have our own individual characters in our books. We've all created our characters from our own single brain. How do we go about creating unique characters that are different? So in the same book where you've got different characters doing different things, and they don't all just sound like different facets of the same person, aka you. What do you do to what do you do to sort of like combat that and make sure that happens? This is open discussion, so please, any of your thoughts are welcome.
Well, let's I'm really curious specifically, Lysander, do you want to start with this and tell us a little bit about the vampires and creatures in your world and how they interact?
Yeah.
Sorry,
usually I just kind of start with an idea, but as far as developing their characters, I don't put a lot of conscious effort into them and their traits. It just kind of comes to me. So, like for the dystopian series, I was just walking to the store and realized out of nowhere, oh, Paris is trans. He's a trans man. Okay. So then his character developed further that way. And just little bits and pieces come to me at random. So I don't really sit down and think, okay, let me make a list of this character's traits or put any kind of conscious effort into creating them, but it just kind of comes to me.
Yeah.
I see a lot of different software out there that says, oh, be like this amazing author who's like a multi-millionaire type thing. You need to follow their method of doing it so that you can become that great too. And they're selling it at a premium. And it's like, it doesn't always work for everybody. You have to find your own way. And I think if that's the way that works for you, then that's great. What about anyone else?
I chaotically create my characters, I suppose. I think so I'm very big on characters, so much so where I have to really work on revisions to reel it back because I'm all about banter and just, hey, let's have a good old time. Who cares about the plot? We're just chit-chatting about our lives. And so I do, I always have notes so I can keep track of who's who. Mm-hmm. I'll have my plot notes, chaos. I'll have my world building notes, chaos. I'll have my character notes, chaos. And in my character notes, as I'm learning things about them, whether I'm drafting it or something I want to put in my draft eventually, I'll start putting in my little checklist of things I know about them. And then I'll usually write little scenes too, just to kind of get the feel of their voice. Is this person a sunny person? Is there, are they a cheerleader? Are they a grump? Are they kind of somber? Who is this person? How do they interact? Sometimes I get to steal those snippets and put it into my story. Sometimes it just kind of sits there for me to look at in the future and go, oh, wow, I forgot I wrote this random scene where Gael was talking about his cock, and it's a rooster. So, but
we'll take both. I mean,
you're my friends here.
So, but I think that's my process. But I always say chaotic trademark is how I do all my outlining and plotting.
That's got when you're so that's two very different ways of doing it, isn't it? Lysander, yours is more as it comes to you when you're having probably things around you trigger an idea or spark an idea, and then it kind of builds or it kind of comes. Oh yeah, of course. But you're saying that your one is more chaotic. So how do you, when you, I'm trying to imagine the chaos. Do you have do you use Post-it notes or a notebook or do you have a different method of
so I had people talk about like different programs they use for like organizing their outlines, and everyone's got a million great different sources out there. I'm old fashioned. I just use Word. I create a bunch of different Word documents. I keep them in my, like, I'll have like an overall folder for my draft. And in that folder, that's where my draft goes, and then revisions, send-offs to readers, feedback from readers, my notes, and then I'll have like outline for pacing, outline just for Act 2, outline for Act 1, outline that's old that I can't use, character outline, new character outline, updated character. You know, and when I say chaos, I mean it is just fucking madness. So I always have like 40 documents that have been created off of that initial whatever idea, and that's why it sits in a lovely little folder.
I actually think that's really super organized, to be fair.
Seriously.
Yeah,
you should see me looking at the dates, trying to figure out where I'm trying to find that one note that I just remembered that I took, and I'm going through 15 different files. Like, that's where the chaos comes in.
Fair play.
There was that one line that I can't remember, but no is just too perfect not to use.
Where did I put it?
Yeah, because as we've talked about with Reese, when the muse strikes, you better write that line down because she
seriously.
And then when I'm on the go, I have my phone obviously, and I just have like a simple note app that I put in there, and then whatever notes I use, I'll copy them and put them in a draft in an email. I'll put my email on my phone or on my computer, and then copy that into my document because I'm just weird.
Now I will piggyback on that because now that technology has gotten so much better, there's different things that you can use to attach to your phone. So my cell now, I have a phone app on my laptop that allows me to copy stuff from my notes and literally paste it right into Word. So that has been very helpful for me because I mean I'm chaos too. I write on receipts, napkins, my hands sometimes, just depending on where I am. I use my notes in my phone as well. But I have notebooks. I have notebooks Grandma and Grandpa. So there's just stuff everywhere. So I'm totally with you on that. There's a method to the madness.
There's always a method. I have to say I also am somewhat chaotic, but for me a lot of the chaos is that I've actually been working in the world of Moonshadow on one project or another for like a really long time. So like there are documents from many different years and months, and trying to find notes for specific things, that struggle I absolutely relate to. There's just a certain amount of chaos that happens naturally with like bigger projects and series and things, and I am not the most organized person either, which is why my camera's kind of at this weird angle so that you can't see the mess that is my house. So
awesome. I use Google Docs because I wrote 25,000 plus words for the starting of book 2 in my dark fantasy series, and it broke and I lost all of it. And so I was you couldn't even be retrieved. Like the motherboard literally blew the system, so it was gone completely. And although I had backups, they hadn't been backed up sufficiently. Like I hadn't kept up to date with it.
The updates.
So I use Google Docs now because it means then that if I have a problem, I don't have to worry about it. But yeah, I kind of do notes on my phone.
I would like to add a pro tip to that. If you do use Word or something on your computer, you can actually set up automated backups with Google Drive. You don't need to have like a paid account unless you have like a lot of stuff, and then you need to have a paid account for more storage.
Yeah, and their storage is like 15 gigs or something, which is something like that, which is sufficient for for writing all the novels that you do. But yeah, it's quite cool. It's really interesting to hear how chaotic it actually is. You kind of think, am I the only one who's just like not got everything in one place? And then you hear other authors and you're like, oh, okay. fair enough.
So sorry to keep jumping back to you, Lysander. Since we were talking about characters, but then we've discussed now writing entire stories. Do you do any architecting? Do you plan at all, or is your whole story free flowing and sort of come to you?
Usually I plan. I have a pretty detailed outline for the plot.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes other notes. Just the characters is really kind of coming from out of nowhere.
Okay. Uh-huh.
But everything else is pretty detailed. There's an outline, Google Doc, and then the main manuscript.
That's really interesting.
So the real question is,
go on, sorry.
The real question is, do you manage to stick to your outline? Because I always outline, but I do not often end up writing the same book that I outline.
It messed up when your characters say, "No, we're not doing that. We're actually going to do this instead."
Yeah, like, hi, I'm actually going to go get myself killed. I know you had plans for me like 3 books down the line, but we're done here.
They want what they want, and we have no say. None.
Yeah. I know that I've read somewhere that lots of authors don't like the way that some authors, that what we're doing now is talking about our characters as if they're independent individual people who happen to just rule our lives, waking and sleeping. But and they seem to think that that's not an okay thing to do because it's not them saying it, it's you. But it's just like, come on, man. It's just like, enjoy the pleasure of just not being in the real world for us. It's okay.
The reason I feel like that's accurate for us as far as like being controlled by them is you spend so much of your time in their head, making their choices, seeing what choices that would be natural. Like, have you ever written a scene and you're just like, this is not how things would play out with this character. But my outline, when I initially wrote it, before I got to know them, said that this was going to happen here. And now that I've spent so much time drafting them and learning their voice and learning their quirks and everything that, encompasses their being, I'm like, we got to change this. It's just not going to fit. That's what she said. Yep. Sorry, I'm inappropriate.
No. It's true. It is true. Yeah, it is true. When I'm writing, I tend to spend a lot of time just sitting, staring out my window, which is right in front of me, and just sort of I have a pigeon, so out my window I have this huge bay tree, and there's 2 pigeons that sit right on the top of it, and they just sit and stare at me for the duration of the time I'm in here. So like for the whole day, me and this pigeon are like staring at each other, and I'm not sure if it can see me or not. But I've literally just happened to gaze in that direction, and this pigeon's like, she's looking at me again. Herbert, what am I going to do? Sorry.
He's probably thinking about flying in and enjoying all the plants you've got behind you.
Yeah.
Or he's also working on his novel and trying to come up with ideas. And when
That's true. I love that. That's it. Pigeon's going in the next scene, Jules. I mean, hey.
Well, I've got a student who I work with, and she and I have a really good relationship. And I said to her she can name one of my characters, and from that I will then create the character, because I have literally no clue what kind of character it was going to be or what it was going to look like or anything like that. And she chose the name. And I was just like, all right. And it took about 2 or 3 days for me to mull over what kind of thing that would fit. And then I came up with a periton. Do you know what a periton is? I love stunned silence. We're like, no. A periton is I have like mythical beasts in mind. I try to stay away from like the typical mythical beasts that you see, like unicorns and what do you call them? Griffins and things like that. So periton is a winged deer, or a winged stag, which I thought would be quite cool. So I quite often choose my character designs based off of either things that I see, like a dodgy pigeon, or names that I get. I think, that's a really cool name. I might see if I can work a character into that and see. Yeah. What about you, Adam?
Oh my God, I'm such an architect. Sorry, I'm such an architect. Yeah, I write notes for everything. I'm crazy organized. I use Word but every single chapter is its own document. I have them saved in files, really organized. I also email everything to myself once a week from one email address that I own to another email address, so that I've got multiple copies of it and it's saved everywhere.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm really meticulous. I have a whole list of characters on a separate document with their characteristics and everything. Yeah, I'm a lunatic. I rarely go off script.
Wow. The rest of us are like, oh God, okay.
My brain works. I knew when I introduced my first character what was going to happen to her at the end of the book before I'd written it. Like, I could see, I just was like, this is her story. How do I tell everybody else's story around it? And I knew what I was going to do, but I had to write out those notes, and then I wrote the story. Yeah.
That's cool.
That's just me.
Oh, we got a couple of questions in the chat, y'all.
We do.
Wait.
I wasn't checking. Yeah, who's talking?
No, me neither.
So let's see. First one we had up was C.T. Moore. Emin Benet, do you have other books from the Crescentville Haunting series or others in the works?
I do not have anything else in the Crescentville Haunting series. That is just it's a standalone right now. It's a little open, so I could always revisit it, but it is just the one for now with Logan and Henry and things like that.
We also have a very cool other question from the same person.
So wonderful. I'm so glad people are involved today. Sorry, Maria.
I know, it's amazing. There we go. To all, do you ever combine characters, and in what situations do you think this is necessary?
Oh,
it's an interesting question.
Yes. Sometimes I'll like as a composite, like take a character out and mix it with another one. So since we're going with Crescentville, actually, it's got a large cast of characters, but I was struggling because I wanted this particular character, Jen, who I couldn't find any page time for. So I wasn't getting to know her like I was with the other characters. And so I went back to the beginning and I took out her scenes and I mixed the necessary information with the other person, and I took the personality of the character that I liked and I mixed it with another character who was also struggling to kind of find their personality. So she sort of evolved into, here's the plot info to that one and here's the personality to that one, and it kept the scenes in certain chapters from stretching or me floundering to find a way to create her character. And I'm sure others have other reasons why they would think that's necessary, but that's like one time I can think of.
That's really cool. It's really difficult, isn't it? Because I suppose when we're doing our characters, we tend to try and keep them as individual. I'm going to use the term people only because it's simpler. When I use the term people, I mean like literally anything that is a character. But like I suppose when we create our people in our stories or our poems, we try and make them individual people who actually have their own personality, their own likes, dislikes, styles, releases. That's weird. I was going to say the relationships. Sorry, my brain is deciding it's just not going to work today.
We got you back.
I don't know. Say that again, Reese. Sorry.
So we got you back. It's all good.
Well, just see me dribbling in the corner. Like, I can't think today.
Well, so have any of the other of you had an experience similar where you've combined characters?
I think I've done the opposite, where a character has too many traits and I've taken too many bits and pieces and think maybe this should be two different people.
That's cool. Yes. And that's
Right.
also
That's
a point.
interesting.
Yep. Dana, what about you?
I
Reese,
personally haven't. Oh, sorry. I personally haven't. But then again, see, my stuff's based in reality. So with me having realistic characters, it's a little bit more complicated for me because I don't want my characters to be the same. They may have similar traits to one another, just as in, oh, we have this in common. But I don't think that I would have ever had that situation unless it was something I was working on and then I went, you know what? No, I want to do something different with this particular character, and I'll make it something completely different as far as the focus. for that particular character. But no, unless I had a character that had multiple personality disorder, probably not. I don't think it'd be one of those situations that I personally would have come up.
Yeah, I haven't ever combined characters. It's entirely possible that it could happen down the line, but I have not done it yet.
Mhm.
And I don't really see myself doing it in any of the stories that I am currently working on, which is a lot.
Yeah, I'm the same. I don't think I have ever combined a character or split a character that was too much apart. We have some weird noise. Sorry, I don't know what that was.
Oh, sorry, that's my dog in the background making his presence known.
Oh, yay!
Sorry.
Hi, buddy.
He's just come over. Oh yeah, he has a bowl which he walks around with sometimes, and he's managed to steal my other dog's bowl. So sorry, carry on.
That's cute. No, that's cute.
He is cute, aren't you? Yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just gonna say, would any of you like to talk about a specific character in your work? Any that really stands out or was really fun to write? And tell us about them.
Well, we can do. We've also got a couple more things in the chat if you wanted to go through those first.
Yeah,
no, that's okay. That's fine. I'm just thinking we can go through. So Ellie's.
Yeah, look at all these comments. Oh my god.
Ellie likes. Hang on, I'm clicking it. Ellie likes.
I'm a total freak. I understand.
Anyone who doesn't know what pantsing is, you saying plantsing or pantsing?
Well, planting is combined.
Yeah,
I think
that's where you're somewhat planning and somewhat pantsing.
Yeah.
Listen,
because there's planners, or plotters. There's pantsers who just make it up, and then there's plantsers who kind of know what they're doing, kind of just going with it.
I feel like one is free flowing and one is architectural. One is building the plot and one is letting the plot come to them. And I think they're both awesome. And then there's a spectrum where people can write anywhere in the middle of that too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good thought. I like it. Okay. CT has said that they're not entirely sure they could do pants completely. So I'm assuming they're talking about the writing process and not the clothing article. Mans likes the pigeon.
Yeah, I think you've got a character there somewhere.
It's really creepy though.
If you ever write a character that's an actual writer, you need to have a muse that's a pigeon.
That would be so cool. Seriously.
Or if you write a pigeon, it's got to turn out that it's like some hyper intelligent being that talks to you like Shakespeare or something. Oh my god, yeah.
That would be so cool. I would love
it's being ridiculous now.
I just imagine a pigeon now with that ruffle collar. What's
Right.
that?
Oh my god.
Has there been one on something? Now y'all making me think about this. Way too hard.
I don't know, but I believe Nikola Tesla tried to marry a pigeon or something along those lines.
Excellent.
Whoa. Okay.
Whatever.
Okay. Good for him. Maybe not so much for the pigeon. And he likes the peritons. That's awesome. Rock on peritons. They're not so well known in stories, so it's quite cool. So I like that. And let's see. Oh, we've got another question from CT. Hang on a second.
You can ask whatever you want. We
love the question.
We love all this. We love all the interaction. So you ask away as many questions as you like. Okay. Sorry to ask another question, but I wanted to ask if any of you plot your character arc, or does it come to you naturally during the writing or editing process?
I do. I plan it out.
I absolutely plan my character arc. I would say that the stuff that I discover is more often going to be like how that character arc comes into being. Like usually I know what the character arc is, and I have at least a rough idea of the final scene. Sometimes I have like the entire final scene like exactly pictured in my head, like months or years in advance of me actually finishing it. Like I'm working very slowly on a 6-book series, and I already know what the final scene of that series is going to be, and I know what the overarching character arc is, both for the main character and the person who is the antagonist.
That's really cool.
But the physical actions that they take to get there and to reflect that character arc is what tends to be what I discover as I'm going along.
It's quite interesting that you say that you know what's going to happen at the end, because I know I said a few weeks ago that actually the first part of the story I normally work on is the ending, because I know where they want to end up in. It's just how do they get to that point? So that's really cool. Okay, we actually have got some more questions, believe it or not.
No, I see that. Let's see them.
Oh, does anyone else want to answer CT's questions? Because they're really character questions.
Like,
they're really interesting questions. Oh my god!
It's okay. Woosah.
Oh my god! I can't normally speak. I promise you. I'm just going to be having problems today.
Look, there's a reason we're writers.
Listen, we got a lot to say, and sometimes it gets all jumbled up in our minds, which is the reason why we write this stuff down.
Yeah, that's very true.
Exactly.
That is very true.
Oh, geez. The mirrored is...
I know, it's crazy.
It's such a trip. I don't know where to point.
Yeah. For me, initially I start out with their particular their flow of where I think they're gonna go. Sometimes they take me other places. I mean, it's a roller coaster ride. It is what it is. Specifically, Jasmine, and I joke about this all the time. I call it a wild card, but literally she is. I don't know whether I'm coming or going with Jasmine half the time. And with this second book, she has got me on an emotional roller coaster, and I want to get off. I'm ready to get off. I want to get through. I have her ending already done, and it's about to get crazier for book 3. But yeah, sometimes they lead you into places after you've already gone. Look, I wanted you to do this. Just like we said earlier, a lot of times we plan, but they destroy. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing a short story anthology that's going to be creating the backstory for my dark fantasy series, which is going to be live on my website soon, and members, which is free to join as a member, but members will get complete access to the entire anthology for each chapter it's a short story that gets written. But yeah, in there I have an idea completely of exactly how it's going to go, because I know the backstory. But the nuances that's going on between the characters and the interactions that they have really get fleshed out after about the 7th or 8th kind of edit, I suppose. And I think the editing process puts a lot of people off, don't they? Because like people have these really amazing ideas. I want to write a story about a pirate that rides a banana that's chased by elephants and flies to the moon or something.
I want to read that.
And so, then that sounds amazing, but then it's actually sitting down and then having to understand that you have to write and then rewrite and then again and again and again, and the story evolves as you do that. And if you get beta readers involved as well, then it can evolve even further, and sometimes it evolves further away than where you originally planned. So
True.
What about anybody else?
Well, real quick, before we jump on to the next questions and things, Lysander, I know it's getting really late where you are. Would you like to jump on and read a little of your work to us? Do you feel like doing that, or is that?
I'm okay. I won't read today.
Okay, cool. I didn't want to put pressure on you. Thank you for letting me know.
Yeah.
And would you like to answer the question? Because I know it's getting really late, and I don't want to make you stay on any longer than you need to.
Yeah. Let's see.
About
I'm taking notes for my character arc. Yeah, I definitely plot things like how they grow, how they change from start to beginning.
Cool.
Sometimes it changes along the way a little bit and gets more nuanced, but I don't think I've ever radically changed anything about them or where they were going to end up. I basically stick to the notes.
Cool. Cool.
That's very, I think I admire both you and Adam to be able to do that. I really do.
It's a different process.
I just can't do it.
I admire freeform writing. I think that's beautiful. It doesn't work for me. Stephen King writes in a freeform style. He doesn't plan anything, and his writing is beautiful. You know, I mean, there's benefits. There are qualities to both styles of writing that are really, really important, and I think beneficial to all of us to learn from each other. We hear how other people do it. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair point to be. You know, I think, like I said at the beginning, that there's so many really good methods out there that you can use. Don't be tricked into buying something that is being sold to you as this is going to make you a star, because that's not how it works. It's hard work and it's persistence, and it's also finding the right people to be around who can help you and support you in that process. And that can be really difficult. And that's one of the reasons why we do this, so we can support fellow authors and writers and poets and create a community that is unique to our, I said guild earlier, but that's the easiest way I can describe it.
That's so awesome that you said that. I love that you said that. I want to use that forever. We're the Guild of Writers. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll have a word with Indy later and say, I think we should change your name. But yeah, I think that it's important that we find something that works to our brain, the way that our brain works, because not every method works. I think if I sat down in front of like Adam's computer, my brain might explode.
I think that's true.
That sounds
as far
messy.
as finding things that work for you is really good. I also think it's good though to explore different methods. Like sometimes during drafts, like different books, I don't think I've written every book the same. Like I don't know if I've written any book the same way I have. Like I find things that work and I start adding it if I'm getting stuck on a new book. I'll try new methods, try new styles out, add that, cut out things that are patterns and styles that aren't, and so it's constantly evolving. Obviously, at the core, I keep the things that really help me. You know what I mean, for my particular approach. But I think it's always good, like if you're struggling or doing something new, to try a new method, try a new style, read a little bit on that. If you're a pantser, try plotting your next book and see like if you like it, or if you're a plotter, try pantsing if you're struggling with a scene, and just kind of go with it and let it find you. So, and those are just more on the basic side, but I think it's always good to branch different methods.
Yeah, and it's not even necessarily like a bad idea to spend money and learn a specific author's method and try that out, because you never know, it might work for you, or it might work for you, like if not directly, then with only mild adjustments. The thing is, don't count on it making you a star or a bestseller, because honestly, as much strategy and marketing and time and energy as we can put into those things, there is still some element of luck in that.
Most
and I like to remind everybody, all the guests and everybody, that our sales do not reflect our quality of writing.
No,
we can be great writers and not make sales. We are not good at marketing ourselves, and that's okay. It sucks that we sometimes can't make sales, but that doesn't mean we're not good writers. And I think that's important to keep in mind.
And I think also being an independent author doesn't mean you're worse than a traditionally published author, because actually I've read some really crappy published works and I've read some really amazing independent author works.
That's why we celebrate self-published and independent authors on this. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so I hope that answers your question, CD. If that doesn't, or you have more thoughts that you want to add to this, by all means, put another question in the chat, or you can
other good questions. Yeah,
it's a really good question. So I'm going to hide that one a sec. Oh, he agrees. Oh, they agree. Sorry, I should say they, because I don't actually know whether what gender they are. So they agree. Okay, so we got one here. We got Hey,
Hello.
I love your name, by the way. And your photo is gorgeous. Okay, hi all. In your books or future books, how many genres would you combine at a time? For example, sci-fi, fantasy, and horror. Ooh, what an
Too
interesting.
many.
As many as crazily possible.
Yes, yes,
We don't care.
go for it. I think the same thing. Yep.
I think all genres have like a sort of a typical theme that you would find within the boundaries of that genre, but there are so many crossovers. Like Star Wars isn't actually science fiction. Star Wars is a space drama, space opera. Lord of the Rings would be classed as high fantasy, but then you've also got other elements of darker fantasy in there too. I think there is a lot of crossover that we have nowadays.
I think that most of the genres are like an umbrella term now, and there are multiple things underneath those terms that
Subgenres.
together.
The subcategories, yeah.
Is your book a horror, fantasy, sci-fi? Yeah, but it's also a sci-fi, fantasy, horror, romance. There's then you tag down these different things that are all part of the story that are important. Yeah, no.
You can kind of go down a rabbit hole with that. Like, seriously, it can really get really crazy at some point, depending on how deep you want to go.
I would
It's
argue
possible.
even that most science fiction and fantasy books are inherently multi-genre, because while we consider science fiction and fantasy to be genres, they're really more of setting types. And so in order to build a book around that, you also need to have a story. So you might have a sci-fi or fantasy setting, but your actual genre, your story type could be adventure or romance.
Romance, yep.
Cozy.
I think. Sorry, go on.
And then what'd you say?
I was thinking when talking about fantasy settings, and then I was thinking about cozy fantasies because they've become really popular as of late. So
I think also as well that the use of the term of the genre that your book is in is more useful for the reader rather than the writer, because the readers normally have an idea of kind of what they would read and kind of what they wouldn't. And so it enables you to have it aimed at a particular group of people who are more likely to read it. For example, one of the books that I'm in the process of publishing at the moment is completely different to what I write. And I couldn't market it as dark fantasy because it's not like at all. So if I put that in the dark fantasy genre, people would be expecting certain kinds of elements that could
meeting reader expectations is important when picking genres.
Yeah. So I do think it's more for the reader rather than the writer to do that. But I mean, you could mix and match any of them, really. I can't see any reason why you couldn't have a completely blended story.
We've had monster erotica authors on here. We've had haiku poets on here. We've had a whole gamut of folks. Yeah, so we celebrate all the mixed up.
Yeah, absolutely,
genre clashing and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I think when you're writing specific things like haikus, for example, although I'm not an expert at all, but I think that if you're writing something like that, having an understanding of the culture that goes behind it and the reason why they exist in Japan and the history of it, I think that's really important. And as long as there is an appreciation there and not appropriation, I think then it's.
Well, and I think what you just said applies to all the genres. Also, there's you mentioned Tolkien a minute ago, and everybody in fantasy looks back to Tolkien, even if they haven't read Tolkien, because Tolkien inspired somebody that inspired them. There's a history of it. You've got the steampunk stuff from the 80s that sort of led to where we are now with sci-fi, and I think that the history of it sort of leads to what's going on.
I think that if we trace it back to their origin roots, there are actually some really good stories which were like the trigger points for that type of genre. So like Frankenstein,
woo! Yeah,
or Dracula, where you've got really clear horror elements going on. And at that time, the audience would have been absolutely aghast at what they read, but they lapped it up. They loved it because it was that gothic horror that, you know, we still use today. So we see things like Pride and Prejudice, which obviously the original was written in the Georgian period in England.
I know what you're about to say.
And
it was a good movie. It was good.
It was. I've been to the place where they filmed that as well. It's really cool.
Nice.
The BBC version was better because it really is a bit more closer to the books. But hey, semantics. I'm not going to argue with you over that. But you know, the story is an amazing story, and it still is a story that you know, rings true today. It's about finding love and how you go about doing that. But they've rewritten it to include things like zombies and stuff. Which people love because it's just like, so I think you can blend anything you like, and that's, I think, the beauty about writing. You can just, it's your playground, isn't it? Anything goes.
Well, and there's a second half to this question asking how many genres would overwhelm a reader in one book, and I feel like we started discussing that the genre helps define for the reader more than anything. Yeah, I described my books as dystopian horror because it takes place in a grungy, dirty, futuristic world that has sort of been run down. So that's where it fits, but it's really a found family story. It's got lots of horror elements that lead to, you know, sort of redemption and salvation that are important in people getting murdered and stuff like that. But you know, whatever.
Book of Eli meets Mad Max.
Yeah, exactly. And so I have to label it dystopia because that's what people are expecting. Yeah. And
I think that's it, isn't it? Is what the readers expect to find sort of within that genre. But then I think that most readers are actually okay with a mix. I think if you go chaotic, though, in terms of just putting in as many genres as you possibly can, that might feel disjointed to the reader. Is it Cloud Atlas? I think it's called Cloud Atlas. But there's a movie. The reason why I'm talking about this is a movie that I've watched once. I will never watch it again. It's the most confusing reader I have literally film I have ever seen. Where it's time traveling backwards and forwards, but there's no indication of where you are or who you are or what's going on between the characters, and it's really difficult to keep track of who's who and what's going on. So I do think that if you go mad and write like 50 different genres, then it'd be tricky for the reader to follow that. But
that would be poor planning too. I mean, in that case, you would have to plan because there's so much going on that you have to be on top of it. So
I feel like
it can get kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, if you're going to use that many genres, you're going to have to explain why in the story.
Yeah,
there has to be some reason, like that has to be part of your story at the end. Oh, this was all leading up to this, and why this happened to lead to that. Okay, but if you're just like starting with this romance that leads into a sci-fi monstrosity that turns into a horror thing, that then I think
the more genres you have, the more genre expectations you have to achieve.
That's a good point also.
That's why you might want, because they're asking, would you advise on a number one? Like, can you combine in a book? I would say no more than 2 as your main. You can add elements of others. So like, I write mostly fantasy with romance, so I would mark it as like romantic fantasy. Now there are elements of mystery in there, or action, but I don't expect people to go into this like it's a mystery book. I expect them to go into this like with the genre expectations of what you would read when you pick up a fantasy book with romance. You know what I mean? So you're looking for those fantasy arcs and romantic arcs, and there's a fun little mystery trickling in, or there's horror elements trickling in, or there's this backdrop, that backdrop. So you can combine as many subgenre elements as you want, but I wouldn't advise more than 2, 3 max, because then you have to hit every single genre expectation throughout your plot, and that starts to interfere with other genre expectations, because mystery expectation readers do not have the same expectation as romance readers, do not have the same expectation as horror readers, So
It's a really good point. That is a really valid point.
Yeah. Listen, what genre do you consider your work now that we're going down this rabbit hole?
It was that too, Adam. Was that
sorry,
just open?
Lysander.
Oh.
What genres are you writing in? Sorry, I'm sorry.
The last series would be dystopian romance.
Okay.
And then what I'm working on now, I'm thinking of it as sci-fi, but I'm not sure how to market it because the themes aren't really sci-fi. It's more like a queer allegory. So the setting is another planet, but I'm not dealing with typical sci-fi themes or tropes. And it's a romance as well. So it's going to be some kind of romance. But yeah, we have to be careful how we market things, thinking about expectations. I don't want them to think it's
a sci-fi,
themes. It's more of an allegory.
And I love that, by the way. I want to mention that I love that. I did the exact same thing. I mentioned some of the characters in my books are super powered. They represent the LGBTQ plus community and the struggles that they've gone through. I don't say that clearly outright, but the fact that every character is queer, I think, has a strong hinting at that. So I love that. That's awesome. And I think you're right. I think that you could probably describe it as a fantasy or an otherworldly fantasy almost, where it's not on this planet, but it's also not sci-fi, something like that, otherworldly fantasy or a planetary fantasy. I don't know. There's probably some cool way to come up with a term for it.
And market that bad boy. Trademark it the minute you figure it out, so nobody else will have it. Listen, we're gonna get our coins any kind of way we can get them. All right.
All right. Okay. Now, thank you very much for your wonderful questions, everyone. If you have any other questions, you're very welcome to keep asking. They're very interesting questions, and it's nice to hear a variety of different answers as well, because everyone has their own way of doing it. I think when you're kind of staring at that blank page and you have an idea, but you're not sure where to start or whether you feel weird or not because you're having to write this new thing that you've never done before. Because I know that some people can be very self-aware, can't they, when they start the writing journey? It's quite nice to hear that other people have had similar experiences and that it's not a unique thing to you. Okay, I'm going to open to the floor, so it's no pressure on anyone. Would anyone like to do some reading from their work today? That'd be amazing if you could.
I would love to.
That would be awesome. Now, I can't show your book on the screen, unfortunately, but what I can do is
probably don't have a cover image. Sorry about that.
Yeah. What I'll do, let me put you on the big screen. Hang on a second. Hang on. I'll put you on the big screen. We're all still here. We haven't left you. There we go.
This is Moonshadow's Guardian. It is the first full-length novel that I've had published. I have to specify that because I had a novella published, but it's currently out of print. And I am going to be reading from chapter 8. The arena stretched out before me, a familiar oval of hard red dirt surrounded by benches of gleaming black stone. An iron-wrought spider stretched across the roof, suspended on 8 monstrous legs. The spider's eye, made entirely of red glass, amplified the scarlet glow emanating from the demon realm's sky, forming a circle of brilliant light at the arena's center. My opponent waited in the circle, one blue finger tapping impatiently on the shaft of his trident. Malthus had outdone himself today, adding spiked shoulders and shiny scales to his already intimidating reptilian form. The crowd loved it. They roared his name as he walked around the circle of light, raising his weapons to each section of the arena. Temric's lips curved, the closest thing to a smile he could manage. They're expecting you to fail. That's why he's showing off. His lips pulled back, revealing his fangs, the only marker of his demonic nature. Don't. I forced my thoughts away from the threat behind his words and smiled. I won't fail you. No fight matters but this fight, I whispered, shifting my concentration to my form. If Malthus wanted to put on a show, we would put on a show. With each step forward, I focused on contorting a different part of my body. My nails became claws. My hair fell to the ground around me, and thick, sharp horns emerged from my head. My skin solidified, forming my own set of scales. These turned the same shade of red as the dirt I walked on. My feet grew thicker, the toes turning into talons. By the time I reached the circle of light, every trace of my humanity had been erased. I was the monster, and I was ready to fight. So, yeah, that is just a very short excerpt from Moonshadow's Guardian. I wanted to go for something that was dark, but not like super gory, because I have some very gory parts, and I wasn't sure how much of that I could get into on this podcast.
You can go as gory as you like. Believe me, you can be as gory as you like. So if you want to read a little bit more because it goes into gore, go for it.
No, actually, that I very specifically picked a nightmare scene for that, and so she wakes up there, and I would have to do some hunting. That is actually a flashback, a memory that she has nightmares of various parts of it. So throughout the main story, you have these nightmares, and you slowly find out what happens to her in the arena in that fight, and it is quite gruesome.
There we go.
Oh, I did find it.
We love it all. We
I
love
did
it
find
all.
it.
We will take it all.
All right. If you want some more gore, this is appropriately chapter 13.
Oh, nice. All right, I'm going to screen again. Hang on.
The crowd roared, and I answered in kind, raising my short sword. I bolted across the arena, my stretched out legs carrying me halfway across its length in 2 strides. Malthus rushed forward to meet me. I feinted left with my sword. He took the bait, and I punched him in the stomach with my free hand. He spat on my face, only his saliva was acid and my skin burned. Bits of flesh melted and fell off my bones, sizzling as they hit the ground. Panic welled up in my chest. What kind of talent was this? Why didn't Temric warn me? I staggered backward and he spat again, this time hitting my sword hand. I screeched and brought my hand close to my chest, dropping the weapon. Malthus pounced, knocking me to the ground. He sat on my chest, pinning my arms to my body with his knees and sending a fresh wave of agony through my searing hand. I froze, my heart slowing to a crawl. I was trapped. Pinned like this, I couldn't make the signal for surrender. "You have to free my hands," I whispered. He traced my jawline with a single claw. "I don't have to do anything except keep you alive. If you beg, I might let you surrender before I've completely mutilated you." He paused halfway up my face, his claw coming dangerously close to my right eye. I wanted to run my own claws through his eyes, but I couldn't move my hands. I couldn't even feel the one he spat on. "Please, let me go." He leaned in, his foul breath filling my nostrils. Acid dripped from his teeth onto my eyes, and I tried to scream, but he slammed his hand into my throat and took my air. I was going to die here. The good news is that she is a demon. She is a very immortal being. So she can survive a lot of torment, which was very fun to write. It gave me the opportunity to do things that I wouldn't be able to do with a human character in terms of the level of gore and torment that are experienced.
I like how we really test our characters and really push them to the absolute limit of what we think they're possibly capable of, and then go a little bit further, just in case.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. I marketed my dark fantasy originally aimed at young adult, and then I've got my best friend. She's also an author, and she read it. And she was like, "It's a bit too many things going on in there that aren't really suitable for young adults." I was like,
in a similar way, I used to market this as fantasy with a small dose of horror, and then I was informed that it is, in fact, fantasy with quite a large dose of horror. But I grew up watching a lot of.
You what your writing is, isn't that nice?
Yeah. Well, the thing is that I grew up watching a lot of really dark anime, like if you know Neon Genesis Evangelion or Elfen Lied. I watched those kinds of things when I was like 13. So my idea of what is a little bit of gore might be somewhat off from the normal concept of that.
I think people have tolerances, don't they, to where they feel safe reading a certain type of genre, and some people will only stick to romance, and some people only stick to horror, and vice versa, whatever. And I think that if you have a reader who is quite restrictive over what they'll read. They'll only read what they need to or what they want. They won't pick it up. But I think that's really cool that you've kind of done the same sort of thing. You've sort of leaned more towards something else when it started off as one thing. That's completely different.
And I have leaned real hard into that in book 2.
Yeah, and if you say the word fantasy, people automatically assume elves, orcs, dragons, fairies, that kind of thing. And if you're talking about demons, that's not really something you normally find in a fantasy novel. But I still think it's cool.
More demons, vampires, and actually there is a dragon. There is a dragon, to be fair.
This goes back to the question, the combo of genres. I think that's a great sounding combo. Yeah,
it really is. And it's really written really well as well. You're a good out loud reader too. You read that really beautifully. All right, so just remind us again. I've put in the chat and I've also put up the banner on the screen as well.
This is Moonshadow's Guardian. It is available in most places where ebooks are sold, not just Amazon. And you can get a pretty paperback from Amazon as well. And it's really pretty. It's kind of like reflective in this light, but it's very, very pretty in person.
Yay!
It's a really nice cover. I like it. All right, it's okay. Oh, hang on, we've got another comment. 1 second. Yeah. Oh, Witchy's here. Hello.
Laura's here. Hi, honey. Good to see you.
Now then, all right. Would anyone like to go next?
Amen. You want to read?
No, I think I am not going to.
No, okay.
My limits on.
No, you're cool. You're cool. No, you're cool. Listen, there is no pressure. We are very, very relaxed here. So, yes, it's a podcast. Yes, we kind of have questions. We talk to people about their writing journeys, etc. But we try and keep it as relaxed as possible. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
talking about the process and seeing how other people do this. It's so unique, and it's such a personal thing, writing, that it's just nice to connect everybody. So yeah, don't feel pressured to have to read. That's not what we want anybody to feel.
No, we like having authors on here who can just join in. That's good enough. In whatever way they can, and whether that is reading, which is awesome, or actually being able to to just join in the conversation. Both are equally as important as they are engaging. Yep. So yeah, you're very welcome.
Do you want to read something, Jules?
Me?
You said at the beginning you had something.
Yeah, I can do. Did you or Reese not want to go first? Reese,
sure, yeah. You got something, Reese? Right? Go. I'm ready.
Look, y'all always know I stay prepared. What we don't do is we're not going to waste time here, just in case. You don't if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. That's pretty much it.
All right, you know the drill. Hang on.
Oh yeah, definitely.
There we go.
So I will be reading from Trap. I'll do a short piece today. So this is actually going to be after Stephanie's little, I can't even call it little, but the second office scene. And she's hanging out with the girls at this particular point. The girls and I were spending the weekend at Naomi's parents' beach house in Port Aransas. I swore they had connections in all 50 states. We were planning on having a 90s movie marathon, so we ventured out for a snack binge at the local grocery store. They were snatching everything off the shelves. Chips, candy, cold drinks, cookie dough, you name it, they tossed it into the basket. When we made it to the register, the cashier smirked. "Can I come to the party?" she asked. "It's invitation only," Jasmine smiled, leaning over the edge of the conveyor belt. "I might be able to." "Down, girl," Anya said, pulling Jasmine behind her. The cashier was shook, and Naomi was red as a beet with embarrassment. I chuckled as we unloaded the basket. Well, look who we have here," I heard Jasmine say. "Isn't this your boss?" Anya joined in. "Damn, he's fine. I wouldn't be able to concentrate on anything with something like that, something that handsome in the room. Steph, how you doing it?" I glanced over my shoulder to see Anya and Jasmine gawking over a magazine with Sterling's sexy smile gracing the cover. A slow heat began to simmer beneath my skin. I quickly schooled my expression and went back to pulling items from the basket. It's not complicated, I answered. I'm an employee and he's my supervisor. Why are you acting like that dude ain't fine and rich? Jasmine said as she moved to the end of the checkout counter. It didn't say anything about a wife and kids in the write up. Y'all are already working close together. I'd make a move if I were you. I laughed. Why didn't these speed reading skills show themselves while we were in college? Don't try to change the subject, Anya said. We haven't heard you talk about a guy in ages. May as well get one who has something going for him. And the money to spoil you rotten, Jasmine added. Can we finish this later? Naomi whispered. We're holding up the line. We all jumped into action to fill the basket with our bagged groceries, pay, and get back to the house. When we got back and started unpacking our goodies, my phone rang. A quick look at that caller ID made my heart flutter in my chest. I stepped away from the girls, angling myself in the corner where I could have privacy and no one could sneak up behind me. Hello? A prompt response, Sterling said. Very good. Obedience has its own rewards, I joked. What are you up to anyway? He chuckled in the receiver, thinking about tying you up, then licking a trail from your neck to your breast, down your stomach, and then between your legs. I gasped. You asked. You can't say things like that while you're miles away and I can't reap the benefits of your fantasy. I'll say what I please. There's nothing you can do about it, and don't even think about coming without my permission. Understood? He switched to his dominant voice, and a tingle ran down my spine. I couldn't help but comply. Yes, sir. Stephanie, what are you doing over there? Jasmine interrupted. I better go, I said, rolling my eyes. The walls suddenly have ears. Sterling laughed again, and I could feel myself starting to react to the sound. Would I make it until I got home? When you get back, I have a few new toys to show you in the den. Come straight to my place when you land, or there will be consequences. I whispered, yes, sir. Good girl. Have fun. He hung up and I shook my head, trying to calm my nerves. So you're going to tell us who you've been kikiing and shoo-shooing on the phone with? I don't know what you're talking about. She never talks about him, Naomi observed. Or her, Jasmine said with a smirk. Ha ha, Jazz. No, it's not a her. He is a business partner. We were discussing business. They were discussing business, all right, Anya said. The business of pleasure. I'm a professional. Strippers are professionals in their field too, Jasmine said. Girl, shut up, Anya laughed. Where do you come up with this stuff? Whatever, I grumbled. Jasmine laughed. Keep your funky little secret then. Anyway, let's get this movie started, I said, ending their interrogation. Where's the remote? That's the end of that scene.
Yay! Sexy.
Very good. Hang on, let me just take the banner off the screen. There we go.
Ah, Sterling.
Love him. Love him.
See, I don't know if I do like him or not. I'm not sold on him as a character. Not in the sense he's not written well. He is written well. I'm just not sure if I like him.
It's his personality at the end of the day. And it's Jules, it's so funny you say that because Thursday, I forgot to tell y'all that. Thursday I did my live on Instagram. And that was fun. But it was funny because everybody's got mixed feelings about Sterling. And I feel like they should, because there's some messed up stuff that happens. But it was fun writing him. It was fun watching the interactions with him and Stephanie play out. But yeah, that is not my favorite person.
You need to have complex characters though, don't you? Because if all the good people were good and all the bad people were bad, it would be a bit boring. But like if you've got a character who's got both traits, then they become suddenly a very complex character. But yeah, you're right. I'm not sure if I'm kind of like, I don't really like his personality, not because he's not well written. I'm just clarifying, he's well written, and I think that's why I don't like him, because he is very well written. But it's just very
Love to
controlling.
hate the bad guys.
He is. No, he's just like, he's very controlling and very kind of, he wants it his way, and there's nothing really outside of that. And so he's, I don't know, he's quite I don't know. He grates on me, but that's good.
And that's what's supposed to happen, in all fairness, because of course toward the end it gets a little bit more complicated. But yeah, at the end of the day, that's kind of what I wanted. I wanted to make you love and hate him at the exact same time, because it's because it's so realistic on that level. It really has to be. It has to be presented in that particular way. I can't make everybody lovable, and I don't want to make everybody lovable, because I'm sorry, there's some people that cannot be redeemed at the end of the day, or at least in the sense for that particular individual. They may be redeemable for somebody else, but sometimes you just got to cut ties with them altogether, and that's pretty much how I played that role with Sterling.
It's really interesting that you said that, because we had a conversation a few weeks ago about redeemable characteristics of a character, and how far is too far beyond the point where you'll forgive them and actually like, or not forgive them. You know, what is the cutoff point? And you know, I can't remember exactly what everybody said, but the sort of general feel was most things are redeemable, but there are a few things that you can't redeem yourself with. And
there's a line. There's a fine line with it.
Yeah.
Even when he comes back, and because I actually do have him popping up in book 2, and then you get to see the after effects, and that's gonna weigh on some folks. This might be a little triggering for some people. I mean, hell, the whole book is. Let's just be honest. There are some folks that are like, "Ooh, that's a little too hot for me. I'm good." But I mean, like I said, it's all in fun. Everything's not for everybody, and that's okay. You can try different things. If you don't like it, it's cool. You can put it down. Yeah. But I feel like this is gonna be another one of those scenes that is really gonna push me, because of how intense the connection was between her and Sterling. Now, after the morning after, she has to figure out, okay, where do I go from this point? So there's a lot. There's a lot to unpack. There's a whole lot of things to unpack in this one.
I did the same with this could be a returning character in my one, where in book 1, when she gets captive in the dungeon, she gets abused by this one particular guard who she doesn't know the name of, so she calls him Tormentor. That's the name that she's given him. And book 3, he catches up with her and captures her, and there's an interaction that's going on between them, and he's not a redeemable character because of what he's done, but he's a necessary character, and at some point she's going to have to go back and ask him for help, and it's going to absolutely brutal inside, but without it's so I quite like it when you have, I'm not keen on like when you have oh my god, what is it when you have 3 people all having like this tryst where they like
a love triangle?
Thank you.
Don't you hate when the easy stuff just escapes your mind? Seriously, it drives you nuts. I listen. It happens to the best of us. It is what it is.
I had the image of a triangle in my head, and
at first I was going to say a menage a trois. No, that's not what we're talking about, Teresa. Not what we're talking about here.
Oh, so I'm personally not keen on love triangles because they're not very common, and I think that unless they're written really well, they don't always come off sounding genuine or something that you can relate to.
The other thing, sorry to interject, but the other thing that I hate about a lot of love triangles is that usually one or both of the options are actually just such terrible people and such terrible options as partners that I'm like, either the choice is really obviously one of these guys because the other one is awful, or this is Twilight and you should actually set them both on fire and run away.
So if you look at, like, I know, like the Twilight series, or even the Hunger Games, where you've got the difference between Gale and Peter, and you've got I don't know, CT. Sorry, I don't know if they're having internet issues. I know that sometimes that can happen, so I'm really sorry. They just asked if Bennett was coming up or not. Yeah. So yeah, whilst it sounds really intriguing because you really want her to choose one or the other, she's forcing a relationship with Peter and it forces her emotions, leaving Gale out, and it's just like, but the most natural person for her to be with would have been Gale.
I think the most natural person for Katniss to be with would have been no one, because especially in the books, it was very much like the romance felt very forced. In the movies, they played it better, and I feel like there seemed to be more of like a natural progression of the relationships. But in the books, it very much felt like they were just like, we have to force her into a romance with one of these people at the end of this, because frankly, my super jaded thought is because she was a female main character of the time that it was written, so she had to end up with someone.
Yeah, and so whereas I prefer where you've got a complex baddie who then requires something from the goodie. I'm using those terms generically, but and then you've got this tryst going on where you have a forced relationship, but neither one can survive without the other because of circumstances. And I think that's much more fascinating to kind of delve into.
Now that I do like, Jules, because there's two things to play off with that. One, what is the strength of the author when it comes down to that particular genre? Because every genre is not everybody's strength, or they may need to get a little bit more help to get where they're trying to go with those particular scenes. And also on top of that, there's also what is the push and pull of the relationship? Do they even like each other? And they don't have to like each other, but they can still put on the front. And that's kind of how it initially. That's one of the reasons why the movie worked, because initially they couldn't stand each other. They're like, I don't want to do this, but we have to because we have to survive. So we got to pretend like we're in a relationship. So
absolutely.
There's so many, there's a lot of dynamics with that, but those are two of the big things that stick out for me with that particular type of relationship, because just like you said, it's more interesting if you don't try to make a relationship. If it doesn't work, you have to build it some kind of way. There has to be dialogue, or there has to be some thoughts about it within the storyline, because if not, it doesn't make sense. It's just data that's thrown in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Witchy's come up with a great point, which is, why can't we just have happy single characters? Which I think is also something that doesn't get written about enough. Not everyone needs to have a partner to be happy. I think that's a really valid point.
Or even want one in some cases, especially with certain characters. You get to a place where you know these people, you know these characters, and you know what fits them when it comes down to the people that they're around and their social structure, I guess you can call it. Doesn't necessarily mean they have to have a romantic relationship.
Yeah,
they could just be friends.
I think Frozen did it really well. Now I don't know what they're going to have in film 3, but in film 2, you've got oh my god, what is going on with my brain today? Thank you.
It was coming. It would have been
a while.
Oh my God.
Sorry. You got Elsa, who is, Anna's like, I need to be in love kind of character, but Elsa's not. She just wants to be happy on her own. And I think that's a really great thing that they've done, where they've celebrated being on their own. And they've also done it with Moana as well, and a couple of other characters that really stand out from Disney. And I think that that's becoming much more normative, just like it is where they're bringing in characters from the LGBTQ community too, which I think is awesome. My book's ready now if you want me to do some reading, or Adam, you are very welcome to go ahead.
Whatever, you want to go next? Go for it.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay, sure. Well, so that's fine. I'll go, whatever.
No worries. You go first.
Me go first. Okay.
Ladies first.
So, hi there, everybody. I'm Adam Andrews Johnson. I've written several books, and I'm going to read a character introduction from my first book, The Mantis Variant. Here it is, The Mantis Variant. It's available in paperback and on ebook, for like $2.99 on Amazon. Oh, and Johar, I don't have basically any relationships in my books either. All the characters are just connecting and making family connections, and yeah, that's what the found family is all about. So that's what it is. But so I'm going to pick up. I mentioned the world has some characters with superpowers that other people are hunting down and killing and stealing their superpowers. There are also sort of what would you call them? Like enhanced characters. That's what we're about to meet. One of these enhanced characters. So Agro looked at one of the massive chunks of broken masonry in front of her with uncertainty, but she grabbed both sides of it with her hands and lifted. As if it were nothing more than a pebble or made of foam, she raised the giant slab of cracked concrete above her head. "No!" cried a voice of a woman somewhere unseen. "Put it back!" Agro looked around, but she could not tell where the voice came from or who was speaking. "What are you doing in our tunnel?" Agro stood there holding the huge piece of stone, feeling surprised and unsure, and she replied, "I'm trying to find someone after the explosion." "Humans aren't welcome in the underground," the voice declared. "Go back the way you came and do not return. There's no one down here for you." Agro put the stone down and called out, "I need to find someone's daughter. We who dwell below no longer hold ties to those on the surface. In the light is no place for those such as we. Be gone." "I think her name's Lahari," Agro said over the woman's voice. Then there was silence. Agro decided to speak up again. "Do you know anyone by that name, Lahari, or maybe something close to it?" She received no reply. Agro tried to explain. "There was an explosion last night in the underground. You must be aware of what happened. There's a mystic up here who says his daughter lives below, and he's so worried about her. I think she's just a child. He calls her his little moth." The voice spoke, but now it was quiet. "Ada?" it said. Agro did not understand and asked again, "Do you know someone named Lahari, or maybe Lahara or Lahira?" Scraping noises that sounded like stone against stone started coming from the debris in front of her. The pieces began shifting, and a moment later, a monstrous young woman stepped out of the rubble, but it remained in place behind her. "Ada?" she said again. Agro's eyes opened very wide, and her jaw dropped. She took a step back from the woman and held up the necklace with its purple gemstone. No description from the mystic or his husband could have prepared Agro for the inhuman person who stood before her. She was not a little girl. Agro did not even consider that the woman was naked, because her skin was an unnatural bluish color that was lighter on her face and much darker over the rest of her body. Almost every inch of her bizarre epidermis was covered in small plate scales that were each about the size of a coin. Her skull was ridged with a trio of crests that rose from her bald, scaly head. Coupled with her skin, she looked very reptilian. Black quills, like those of a sea urchin, stuck out all around her face like countless tiny horns. They also protruded from the sides and back of her neck, and they got larger the further down they grew. More spines stabbed out from her shoulders and upper arms, as well as from her hips and the sides of her thighs. She stared at Agro with sparkling golden eyes. She took a step forward and reached out to take the handmade piece of jewelry. "Ada sent you?" the woman asked. "He's never told anyone about my secret passage." "Ada?" Agro replied. "Is that your father? Are you Lahari?" Lahari nodded. "I am." And I'll stop right there because I feel like I've been reading for a little while, and we've got our introduction, and you've met Lahari. And so her dads are a gay couple, so there's a relationship mentioned there, but the relationship is not important to the story. It's just that I made them gay because I could.
I love that, though. It's all about celebrating people, isn't it? Your first book very much does that.
My first book, I wanted to say my first book is so much about relationships and the connection between people that when I was writing this book, I needed to write something else. It was it was like MN was saying that to take a different path and write something different and try something new, I had to write something that was not about relationships just to, yeah.
But although that book isn't centered on relationships specifically, I think every author has their own sort of particular style of writing. And I think for you, your style is that connection between the people that are in it, and that is the driving force that brings it forward, even though you've got completely different things going on in the background.
Yeah, it's the intimacy in one and the sort of found family vibe in the other. Yeah, that because it's so much about connecting. That's what my stories are.
I actually really like the found family, and so does. Hang on, let me go back to the main chat. Hang on, so does Witchy. She loves. We got. I'm trying to read the chat now.
Tech stuff. We're having tech issues again. Oh God, the tech stuff.
I can't read and talk at the same time. I can't even talk today, let alone read stuff at the same time. I put in the private chat at the beginning. Oh, it's catching. My brain fuzzes decided it's going to leap over to yours, and it's going to stop your brain from functioning normally as well.
Don't worry, we'll swat it away.
Go back to England. We don't want Jules's brain today. Oh man.
But you're right though, because and then Adam too, a lot with a lot of the things that you write, a lot of it's about humanity. At the end of the day, it's about humanity. And I love that because there's just so much you can play off of that as far as how we interact with one another. Even with the fantasy elements involved in it, it still comes back to humanity. How are we treating each other? How does the way we treat each other affect other things, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, very much so. I think that's something that is really a strength for you, Adam. You know, you really kind of encapsulated that particular thing, and you're very, loving in the sense that you kind of really build relationships with people. You really try hard to sort of like share, kindness and love and care towards other people. And I think that
people's heads are getting chopped off constantly.
Yeah,
it's terrible and brutal. Yes, I do. You're right. It's
I don't think you do. I think you have that. I think Reese is her book, for example, is really good at tuning into the differences that are going on in people's sexual intimacy that they have and the levels that they have, and I think that's really powerful as well. So it's not like a damaging critique of what you've written. I think it's actually telling of you as an author the kind of things that you have embedded in your story telling that you do, and I think that's so important. And I think we all have that, have our own unique voice, I suppose. Very good. All right. Shall I read a little bit of mine?
Please do. Yes, please read some of yours.
All right. All right, let me put me on the big screen. Hang on. So this is a very, 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 very rough first draft. So this is never read before content.
Yay!
Exclusive. How exciting.
I am genuinely interested to know what you think. And by all means, say what you think in the chat. Okay, let me go back over to it. So I haven't got any chapters yet because it's so new, and I know roughly where it's happening in the story, but I couldn't tell you exactly what happens before or afterwards, because afterwards I haven't even written that bit yet. Okay. He's down. He's down. Get the medic, cried out one of the soldiers as others rushed to help. But despite trying to see what was happening, the tree coverage was too much, and all I had left was with my imagination. A sudden tug on my ankle, and then the straps on my back caused me to lose my balance and fall from the branch. It was so unexpected that even the several shouts from the people that scowled down at me to one another, I couldn't even see. It took a moment to register. They'd caught me. She's here! One soldier knelt on my neck, the pressure causing my vision to grey at the edges. Get him! Oh, I'm gonna kill I spluttered as I tried with desperation to breathe, using whatever remained of my strength. I clawed at the leg and kicked to try and wiggle free, but all it did was waste whatever air I had left in my lungs. The soldier chuckled, spat on the ground next to my head, and stood. The sudden release of pressure caused me to gulp in as much oxygen as I could as I lay on my back. As my vision returned, rough hands grabbed the scruff of my clothes, forcing me to my feet to stand on my legs, which shook from the adrenaline. I glowered at the bastard whose lips were curled into a snarl and spat at him, which he returned with a solid punch to my temple, causing me to stagger to the side. Instead of falling, however, the soldier that held my upper arm yanked me to my feet as he laughed, scrutinizing every inch of my bow and sword. "Take her to him," one ordered, and glared at me, his expression a mixture of hate and pleasure. The soldiers flanked me, surrounded me front and back, as they led me to their illustrious rapist leader. Images, sounds, and smells flooded my head and my vision. My hands and legs shook as my heart thumped hard in my chest. I dreaded and dreamt of the moment I'd finally meet my tormentor face to face, yet this was not how it was supposed to be. The soldiers forced me to my knees and tied my hands behind my back. There was no sign of Naili or Katori, and despite struggling against the binding that held my wrists, I was immobile. Well, well, well. The very human embodiment of evil stepped out from the large tent that was nearby. The very girl herself, and here I was thinking you were a mere fragment. "You're a disappointment too," I snarled at him. "I thought you'd be bigger." Rather than lunge at me, he instead grinned, but the dead emotion never left his eyes. We're both unimpressed. You know, I've tracked you to that boy's house, that little one in the mountains. Raven, yes, that's his name. You know his name? The mention of Raven brought a wave of guilt and despair that I'd managed to bury, and despite the falter in my voice, I forced it out with a growl. He raised an eyebrow. "Who do you think he got that scar from?" "Scar?" I racked my brain to think of what he was talking about, but nothing came to mind, so instead I tried to change the subject as he turned away from me, fingering the blade he held in his hand. "Why?" "Because I enjoy it," he said with a shrug. The statement was spoken with a mixture of conviction and pleasure, and it brought a wave of chills over me. "Why?" You intrigue me. You're the one that got away." He turned to face me again. His face had darkened and his eyes glinted with a dangerous hint of the all-too-common amber glow. "And no one gets away. Not from the castle, and not from me." "So kill me already, then." My voice cracked. I wasn't ready to die, not like I'd been at the battle. Here it felt wrong. The desire to survive burned in every muscle of my body as I tensed against the sword as he pointed the tip at my throat. "You killed a lot of my men, and I do owe them for the damage you have caused, but," he sheathed his sword, making me release the breath I've been holding, "your knowledge and gift with the Tau, you're useful. Besides, my men, the envoy, we're only the beginning, and we don't matter. This I am resigned to, but you are a trophy and will lead us to victory." "I'll never join you," I spat at the ground, and he smirked, curling his top lip into a snarl. "No, you're not joining us, but you will be giving us the knowledge, you know. After that, then perhaps you'll join Raven." "Raven? What did he have to do with this?" "He's gone," I said flatly. "Gone?" He laughed. "Is that what you think?" I stared at him. The last time I'd seen Raven was when he'd been shoved through the portal. Oh no. "Oh yes, he's made a fine addition to our ranks. So easy to turn." "Yeah!" I screamed at him, fighting against the restraints as the rasp of his voice brought a wave of nausea that threatened to engulf me as I fought for my life and the lives he had taken. "You judge me, yet you have done worse." He dragged a nearby stool to him and sat on it, inches from me. Just the knowledge he was in my space brought the bile to rise in my throat again. "Worse!" I exclaimed, my voice raising in volume as I gave him the glare of hatred and death. "What could be worse than—" I allowed my voice to trail off as I said the word made it real. He leant with both elbows on his knees, raised one eyebrow and whispered, "Then what?" "I've only killed because I've had to," I said, matching his tone. "I've never done what you've done." "Is that what happened? That's not what my scouts have reported to me. Perhaps they were wrong with what they saw you do to Callion. The old man never stood a chance against someone like you." A cold chill flooded my face. He knew? But how? His putrid orange eyes bored into mine, and I glanced away, unable to hold his gaze. "You see," he sneered, "I know where you've been. Your failure in the cave, for example." He gave a nonchalant shrug. "Oh, don't worry. Your secret is safe with me." He nodded to the soldiers that held me as they dragged me back to the tree and tied my hands so both my arms were wrapped around the trunk and used chains to clamp my hands together. I was his prisoner. Again. I screamed at him, fighting with all my might against the chains that pinned me to the tree, howling in anger as he remained still and composed, his lips in a snarl that twisted his face into one of pure evil. "Oh, don't worry." He stood and leered over me. "Your friends will be freed into hallowed void beyond the Sanguine River, far, far away from this land. They'll be safe and cared for as slaves for the Donadai or even the Mente. Though, if they're very unlucky, they might end up as food for the Ranuline, or perhaps a Hethelin. Oh well," he indicated with his hand as to where a beast stomped towards us. Its bottom canines jutted out from its lips, curled towards its flat nostrils, and thick tufts of hair covered the majority of its legs and arms, whilst it held a large shield that appeared similar to a seashell, and its armour had rough ridges that matched the star-like pattern of the shield. The monster creature stood twice the height of Tormentor, who ushered it closer. "See that there?" He jabbed his thumb in my direction. "If it moves, it's your dinner. Got it?" And I'm going to stop there. Hang on. There we go.
That was awesome.
Thank you very much.
I wasn't sure if that was the reunion of Ray with the Tormentor, and then you told us at the end the Tormentor. I was like, oh god, that's him. Yep.
Yeah, so the Tormentor's human. But yeah, it's something that he basically tortures her in book one, and you never really find out exactly what he's done, but she has PTSD and loads of flashbacks because of it. And she kind of like has built it up in her mind that she wants to kill him, and when she sees him, she's going to be the one doing the hunting, and she's going to find him and she's going to get him. And that's not how it happens at all. And so she's quite upset that it didn't happen in the way that she wanted to. So yeah, so there's a little sneak peek into book 3 of my series.
Thank you for sharing that with us. That was really exciting.
That's all right. You're welcome. You're welcome. Oh, we've got some nice comments here in the chat. Okay, so we've got hang on a second. Oh, this is a nice comment. Thank you. Oh my, I love this read. Started with a bang and urgency that it gripped me. The fear and intrigue at the mention of meet their rapist leader. Ooh, yes. Yes, he is not a very nice man. So this is where we're talking about, is someone redeemable? And I'm not entirely sure he is. Because bearing in mind that most of the people who he does that to are not adults.
Right.
And he's not just doing it, he's clearly enjoying himself while he's doing it.
That part.
Yeah.
That's the part that really makes it.
Yeah. I wanted to have a character who was going to be there and present, like a shadow that she couldn't escape from, but a necessary part of her life. And so he is unfortunately they're going to collide more than once. And, I think that he is not going to be redeemable because of what he's done. I don't think people should redeem him or like him or even want to spend any time with him at all. But at the end of the day, he is necessary. And yeah, at this moment in time, she just wants to kill him. and
we would definitely understand why.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. What you're showing, Adam? Hang on. Let me make you solo so we can see what you've got. Here we go.
Fuck redemption, right there.
That is perfect. Yeah, I think you can redeem some characters, but I mean, I don't know. Should you? I think
Some
it's
need to
probably
get murdered. Characters just need to get murdered. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think enjoying it when you're torturing people, that I feel like that crosses a real line.
I toyed with that in my third book. I've got somebody who's forced to torture somebody else, and so it puts that person into the perspective of being the horrible person that they don't want to be. And yeah, I toyed with that sort of, where's the guilt? Who's the guilty party in this? And of course, they feel guilty for everything they've done. But yeah.
Yeah, so like Ray, for example, who's the protagonist, she does some really crappy stuff. You know, book 2, she ends up, someone, and just because she's really angry, but he is an asshole to her, and so you kind of can see why she did that. She was also had no sleep for 3 days. She'd also lost people under her command, and she was also slightly drunk. So you kind of got all those combined, and she's in a really, really, really bad mood, and yeah. That I think is potentially redeemable, because although she's crossed that line, she's not a malicious person.
Mm-hmm.
She's just made mistakes. But then, do we forgive her for that? Does she get forgiven? Should she get forgiven?
Moreover, does she forgive herself?
Yes,
that's a big question for my main character about a lot of the things that she's done and been forced to do. Because in this world, she's a demon, and demons are only allowed to roam the mortal realm when they are like bound to a human by blood magic, and they're basically slaves. And so there's a huge question of, will she and can she forgive herself for the things that she did while she was under those spell contracts?
Yeah, and I think also having a character that's grey in the sense of like their characteristics, and they're not like purely one or the other. I think that's really intriguing. It really drives the story forward. I think that's a really good way you've done that. We've got a couple of other things in the comments. I love the fact that we've got a comment section today that's so active. Thank you everyone for taking part. It's amazing. Okay, so
I want to say thank you to Lysander for sticking around. It's almost 5 a.m. where you are. Thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Appreciate you for that.
I can read a little bit before I go, but I might go soon.
You would like to read? Oh my God, yes, we'd love that. Oh my God, yes, please.
We'll do the comments after you've done a little bit of reading. Are you all right to go on the big screen?
Yeah, sure.
Oh,
perfect.
Good.
On there now. Yay. Okay, here you go.
Okay, this is Lap Dance for Dystopia, the first in the series. So I'll read from the beginning of that novella. A dark gaze enveloped me, swallowing me whole. I could feel those eyes from the other side of the room. A heavy heat hung in the air of the parlor, a room dimly lit to save electricity and obscure the stains on the carpet. I was pulling at a sequin that had come loose from my shirt and trying to ignore the icy glances from the new inspector when Midge sat on the couch beside me. I was about to ask her if she had a sewing kit when she spoke. Saran, he's asking about you. Who's asking about me? I asked, my bare leg swinging forward and back. I knew exactly who she was talking about, though. Midge seemed enthusiastic, but this could not be good. I shifted on the vinyl couch, sticky with the sweat of dancers and sex workers. You danced for him before. He must be interested, she said, elbowing me in the side. He looks rich. Extra provisions, extra special. I had danced for him earlier that evening. Lap dances usually weren't my thing. That might sound strange coming from an exotic dancer, but it's the total truth. My boss told me I'm sensual but detached. I just prefer to be on stage rather than straddling a stranger who may or may not tip me. But this man requested me, so I forgot about every anxiety that plagued me. I forgot about the stabbing chest pains and the aching arches of my feet, and I danced in the dark. And that's it.
I loved it.
Oh.
I love that.
Good.
Yeah. Awesome.
That was amazing. I love that.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about the story itself, because that was a fascinating sort of
Snippet.
excerpt.
Yeah.
It's a dystopian romance, and it's about Suren, who is an exotic dancer, and he meets the man who comes to inspect the place, and they're both asexual, and it's about their relationship and the problems that they have to face in this dystopian world.
Oh,
That's so
awesome. Do they get together and have a relationship that an asexual relationship that leads to the end of the story the whole way through?
Yeah, they get together pretty quickly. It's actually pretty cozy for dystopian. There's not a lot of angst between the two of them. It's more of external angst about this horrible world they're living in. But yeah, it's very romantic. They're not sexually attracted to each other, but they like each other, and it's very intimate, even though there's no sexual attraction between them.
I love the fact that lots of stories, as we said a short while ago, that lots of stories are going in the direction where a sort of a sexual intimacy relationship thing isn't necessary for those characters or for the story. It's other things that are more important. And, I love that. I think that's really, really interesting.
And it provides a lot of representation that hasn't been recognized ever before.
Absolutely.
So I think this is really important.
Definitely.
I think one of my favorite lines that I heard you say was, the character was very sensual but detached, and you can really see it in the whole setup, and then the anxiety that they were going through, but they were trying to push it down in order to try to get through that particular point. I love that. I love that.
Thank you.
Now we've got a couple of. Sorry, I'm just reading the chat as well.
Yeah.
Another question by CT. These books are all written so well. I must ask, how many rounds of edits, guesstimate, do you have any CPs and betas? If so, how many?
I don't even know how many edits. It's just an ongoing process. But I don't have a critique partner, and betas are usually between 3 and 5 beta readers for each piece.
I think a lot of writers find it quite difficult to find beta readers, don't they? Because they don't really know which pool to go to actually find them. So do any of you have techniques of how to find beta readers who are really useful, who are going to help you?
Make friends with lots of writers.
I was literally going to say, make friends with writers.
I was like,
I've got a couple of really good friends that were English majors, so they're pretty useful. I have one really good friend that I always throw stuff at the wall with, and he and I have been doing this since the initial stages of Trap. So every time I get an idea, it's an ongoing conversation. It's like we might get a good morning in every blue moon, but for the most part, it's just one chain email or text that we just consistently go through. But he's one of those people that will push me beyond, okay, I hear what you're saying, but what about this? So thankfully, I've got one of those people. But as far as like other beta readers, I think being a newer published author is probably a little bit harder if you don't know who to talk to. Now that I've gotten a little bit more exposure, I think I can probably get more beta readers for book 2. But as far as edits, 1. Wow. And my editor was like, I can't even understand why this is as clean as it is. And I'm like, because I probably went through it about 12 times before I sent it to you. But yeah, I'm a perfectionist by nature. So I'll probably butchered it and put it back together at least 10 times before I actually went, all right, I'm gonna push this button, just send it out, just go. And we did a couple of changes within the editing process, but it was the initial edit and then the second pass, and that was it. I don't know how this is gonna go with the second one, but the first one went through pretty easy, and I'm probably not the one to go off with that, because that's an anomaly for sure.
Does it, this is an open question to all of you. Does it, have you ever sent off a piece of your work to someone to beta read or edit, and it's come back and it's completely different to how you wanted it, and you've not been happy with the changes that they've suggested?
Oof. For me specifically, mine was a lot of dialogue issue. That was probably the biggest thing that my editor and I were having pushback with, because I write African American vernacular. That's not something that everybody understands, and it's also dialectal stuff from being a New Orleanian too. So it was things that she'd have to research, or she would come back and ask me, well, don't you want to say this? And I'm like, no, I said what I said. That's it. I don't want to change it. And there's a reason behind that. So I literally would have to walk through the reason why this is what this is. And I would have to put notes. This is AAV, or this is specific to New Orleans. And this, so it was a lot. It got to the point where I'm like, you know what? I might need to just make a glossary to put in my book, because there's just certain things that unless you live in the South or unless you live in the area, you just don't you don't really get it. So that's probably things that will probably help on the back end. But yeah, that was the biggest pushback for me. Mostly everything else was okay.
Yeah, I had one that she tried to rearrange a whole ton of my work, and I was just like, but now it doesn't make any sense because it doesn't go with what I've written before. And I actually dropped her as an editor, because although her like proofreading style was fine, she wanted to change so much it stopped being my work and was more her work, and it was just like, that's not the route I want to go down. I think minor edits are absolutely fine, like word changes and style of writing and things like that.
Right.
I think if you're going to have an editor who's going to be completely like stomping all over your work, and
Yeah, no, I've never experienced anything like that before. That's brutal.
Yeah, that's wild. I think for me, the biggest thing that I've encountered, at least in the past like few years, not when I was like very young, because there were instances when I was like very young where I feel like the criticism was, kind of fair, because like I started writing and like having critiques when I was like 13. So, but like in my adult life, I think the biggest thing that I've had where I've like actually felt a desire to push back is people wanting to insert sexual tension when it doesn't really make sense, because for my POV characters, even if they are like occasionally into sex, it's usually like a last thought. Like it's far from the brain. They're not driven by that in any way. Some of them are outright demisexual or asexual, but it's just not generally a priority. And I am asexual, and I have no idea how to write sexual tension. But it's also like that's
we can
not
talk
true
about
to the
that.
character.
We can talk if you need to have that. Okay.
All right.
I'm not, and I can't write that. So there you go. So I think also it goes to the skill set of the author.
It's a skill. It is a skill that I do not have, but it's also not something that I'm super interested in developing, because I am interested in exploring more like people who are on the asexuality spectrum as my characters, and I do seem to like have a lot of characters accidentally end up in romances, but I also don't want to ever feel like I'm obligated to have a romance or anything sexual in my books. Especially because for so long, anytime a woman was a main character, that was just sort of like the end deal. Even if the story was completely unrelated, somewhere along the way, she had to find a man.
It has to be a partner somewhere.
Yeah.
Smash them together.
And with what you were saying, Diana, I think that all of us, every reader has a certain level of what they want. Also, not every reader wants erotica, who wants romance. They want to see the connection of the people instead of the sex, and some people really, really want the erotica. So I think it's important to have an entire spectrum of the styles of writing and what's available. We need low level gore to get people into the high level gore. I can't have some people reading my work. They got to start with something a little bit tamer. Need some gateway horror to get them into it. But.
Absolutely.
I see people have to leave. We're so late. I know we're so
no,
sorry.
So I was actually just going to say the same thing. We've come to like the end of the show, and I think we can still keep talking about this because it's just been such an interesting conversation. Now, I am going to say a massive thank you to all my lovely guest authors. We hope you have enjoyed yourselves, and we would love to have you come back on again if you
And
would
the
have
guests who've
us.
been watching also, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, everyone who's been watching. And if you want to join our Discord, then hit up Adam and he'll send you the link because he seems to have it and I don't for some reason. No idea why. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye. Thank